Good afternoon and welcome back to our third of our webinar series with the Friends of the Groom. I'm Janet Langhorst. I'm the Connecting Committee representative for the Great Lakes region of the Presbyterian Association of Musicians, and we are the ones bringing you this webinar this afternoon. As we go through, if you have questions, please use the Q&A button at wherever it appears on your screen, and our president, Ann Wood, will be monitoring that, and we will take care of that at the end. We've introduced them each time, but if you're joining us for the first time, and I won't try to explain the title of the group because Tom is an actor and he does a much better job than I do. But the group has been around since 1980. We perform 100 to 150 times a year, going to as many as 12 to 16 states and 10 to 12 denominations. They also do some international travel, and they have been teaching artists at Montreat. They are housed at St. Thomas Episcopal Church in Cincinnati. Without further ado, let's welcome Tom and Jocelyn.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Sluka.
And I'm Tom Long.
Friends of the Groom Theater Company in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is our third of 3 webinars where we've been exploring ways to use theater to enhance worship and Christian education. The first 2 webinars can be found on the PAM website.
And since Janet mentioned our name, I probably should say our name, Friends of the Groom, refers to the image of Christ as the bridegroom in the New Testament, despite the fact that many people have wondered if we had something to do with weddings. Like, are we a limousine service? Do we perform at bachelor parties? No. Friends of the Groom really just means Friends of Jesus. In our previous webinar, the title of that webinar was Enacted Word, and we focused a lot on the staging of Scripture. But we did end that webinar by delving into some ways of using theater activities in retreat settings and in group gathering settings. And today, we'd like to add to that list of ways of using theater activities for retreats and for gatherings. If you'll take a look at this, you'll see that anytime you're planning a retreat or a series of Christian education lessons, you can't really jump straight into the deepest content or the heaviest material and expect people to be able to interact with it in any kind of vulnerable way, or interact with each other in any kind of vulnerable way. Normally, you have to build a level of openness and trust. And often the best way to do that is with simple mixing exercises or group building activities that are a little bit lighter than the content you're trying to cover. The company Youth Specialties, a number of years ago, they came up with this diagram, which I believe they called the ribbon cake model of planning, where they said, take your deeper content and layer it into, surround it with those lighter mixers and lighter sharing activities. And then when the time comes to plan your first lesson, if you look at the diagram, you'll see if you slice off a piece of the cake, the first lesson might be mostly spent on helping people get to know each other and share openly. And then as you add additional lessons and slice off more of the cake, you can see that each lesson includes more content, but it also is still bracketed by that lighter sharing and mixing activity, which is so essential if you're trying to build a community that has any kind of spiritual depth for people. So today, we're going to begin with the frosting, those lighter layers on either side of the cake, the mixers. And we'll begin with 2 mixers that are very simple, but they've really been, they've worked for us almost every time over the years. The first is simply, if I'm introducing a group, I just call it stand sit. If I'm talking to a group, I've introduced myself, I might say, that's who I am. Now I'd like to find out who all of you are. And it would take too long for you all to say your names, so we're going to do a brief crowd introduction. I'll name a category. If it applies to you, stand up as you're able, and we'll see who's here. For example, stand up if you are a member of this church. Great. All right. Stand up if you've been a member for less than 1 year. Anyone? Stand up if you've been a member for more than 10 years. More than 20 years. More than 39 years. And we don't want to get more personal than that. Let's hear a round of applause for those people for 39 years or more. Okay. Stand up if you've seen the movie Star Wars more than 5 times, the original Star Wars. Stand up if you've seen Gone with the Wind more than 5 times. Stand up if you've seen Gone with the Wind once, but it felt like 5 times. Okay. Then I just proceed with a series of categories to find out things about the group. Some of those categories, indeed, would elicit genuine information you want to know about the group, like how long they've been church members, or stand up if you came today mostly because you wanted to learn something. Stand up if you came today primarily just to have fun and a good time. Stand up if you came today because someone told you you had to. You might get some idea of the group that you were dealing with those kind of questions. Of course, the real art to this exercise is in framing and structuring the questions and making them fit your group. And I always like to intersperse humorous categories just to keep people laughing and enjoying one another, like the Star Wars Gone with the Wind categories. A rule of thumb, anytime you're dealing with comedy and you want to do something lighthearted, comedy comes in threes, set up, punchline. So categories like stand up if you married your high school sweetheart. Stand up if you married your college sweetheart. Stand up if you married someone else's high school or college sweetheart. Okay. Now, we did send out a packet of handouts for all of you that wanted them over these 3 webinars, but we did not include anything about stand up or sit down or the categories involved. So we're going to put up just on the screen here. Here's a list of possible categories to use. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see there's actually some even geared toward Christmas or Advent. And I don't expect people to be able to read this and digest it here in an instant while they're watching this webinar. But since these are being recorded, hopefully you'll be able to go back and take a screenshot of this, a screen grab, or even photograph it with your iPhone, and you'll have it available to you if you need it. Okay. There's a variation of the crowd introduction where I say to a group, now this is the Moses Briggs personality inventory, which strangely is a sung exam. I am going to sing a line of a song to you, and you just sing back to me the next line if you know it. So, Maresy Dotes and Dozy Dotes.
And little Lampsy Divey.
East side, west side.
All around the town.
These are the older folks and the nostalgia buffs. It's my party and I'll
cry if I want to.
Nestles.
Nestle's makes the very best chocolate.
Okay, we've got some boomers here today. Now let's try another one. Here's the story
of a lovely lady.
These are the people that watch way too many television reruns. That was the Brady Bunch theme song. And then at some point, I'll always try to start a song that everybody can sing back on. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. And that's all of us who are gathered today under the umbrella of that grace. Of course, with any of these, either stand up, sit down, or the Moses Briggs personality test, you can figure out your own categories or your own songs that are tailored to your group to have them sing back to you. Okay, so that's...
You want to watch the Moses Briggs?
Oh, yes. Let's take a look at the Moses Briggs. Since, again, we didn't send these in handouts, if you want to take a look at some of the songs we've used that you just heard, they're up there on the screen that you can take a screen grab of or a photograph of if you need them. Okay. That was crowd introduction, stand up, sit down, Moses Briggs personality inventory. Our next mixer, also extremely simple. We just call it circle switch. That's where you get all of your participants in a big circle. You make sure that there is only one chair for each person in the circle. All the chairs are filled. Then you stand in the middle and you say to your group, I'm going to name a category. If the category fits you, get up and switch chairs. Now, since there's actually one less chair than there are people, if you count me in the middle, I'm going to sit down in one of the chairs and someone else will get stuck here in the middle and they will have to think of a new category. All right. The only Rules to emphasize are you cannot sit back down in the seat you just stood up out of. And please, no pushing and shoving to get to a chair. That rule is very important if you're playing this game with junior high boys. And it's as simple as that. So, for example, everyone who was born in this state of the United States switch chairs. At that point, everybody jumps up, switches chairs. I sit down. Someone gets stuck in the middle. They have to think of a new category. And you just continue that way. And it's a great way of getting everybody on their feet, getting them energized, but it also reveals some qualities of the group that they might want to see about one another, just what group you're dealing with and what experiences they've had. Okay, circle switch.
Many times when we lead retreats, they're usually or often intergenerational, all church retreats, sometimes held at the church and sometimes offsite at a retreat center. And when we have mixed ages, we usually start the retreat by doing performing a series of scenes. And then afterwards, we divide up into age groups. While the adults are using small group discussion and talking about the scenes they just saw, we usually take the younger kids off and we play some fun theater games with them and help them perform some scenes that we're going to come back later and perform for the adults. So this is a game, a very fun game that works well with school-age kids through teens. It's called Machine. And let's take a look at how it's played, and then we can discuss how you might be able to use it.
This is a great game for practicing teamwork. It's called Machine. It starts with one actor on stage making a mechanical action and a mechanical sound. Beep, beep, beep. One at a time, you can join the machine with your own action and your own sound, making sure to interact and connect with the parts of the machine that are already there. Beep, 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 beep. Now, you always want to add variety, so make sure your action and sound are different from anyone else's, and you may even want to try different rhythms. Beep, 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 or add different levels. Beep, beep, beep. Bong, 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 bong. Okay, good. Got it? Let's give it a try. Beep, 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 Okay, now we're going to add some controls to the machine. When I say off, I want you to freeze. Off. Good. Okay, when I say on, you can start running again. On. Off. On. Off. Okay, now when I say faster, you can speed up and get a little bit louder. And when I say slower, just slow down a little bit. On. Faster. 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 Slower. 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 Off. Okay, good job, everybody.
Okay, that was Machine. Now, if you are trying to create a presentation using young people that you could perform at a youth event or a family event or even in a youth worship service, you can actually use the Machine game to lead into the performing of a story, especially if that performance involves the body scenery technique that we demonstrated in the first webinar we showed. In that webinar, we presented the story of the prodigal son, where young people actually acted out pieces of scenery. We called it body scenery. And if you were leading into that story, or one we sent out to you, it was a body scenery version of the Christmas story, a machine could lead into that story very easily. And here's how that would work. Let's take a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Imagination Machine.
Boom, 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 ch, 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 boom, ch. Boom,
And there you have it, the Imagination Machine. But that's not all. I can control the machine with this imaginary remote. Off. On. Off. On. Off. On. Off. I can also control the machine's speed with this large, invisible wheel. On. Faster. 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 All the way to 11. Oops. Sorry about that. Luckily, we also have an imaginary hydraulic lever for emergencies just like this. Off. Now, not only can the machine stop and go, run faster, run down, and start again, but because it is made from 100% pure chunks of federally approved imagination, the machine can make anything in the world I ask it to make. Imagination Machine, I would like to see a piano. Maestro Lucy will now play Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Oh, bravo, bravo. Imagination Machine, I would like to see a dog. Oh, he's friendly. Look, his tail's wagging. Is this your dog?
Yes.
Can he do tricks?
You can. Sit, boy. Good. Down. Yay. Shake. Speak.
That's great. You got any more?
Play dead.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Imagination Machine, I'd like to see an elephant.
At this point, the young people would continue to make objects that they had rehearsed until they come to a final object that segues into the story they want.
Imagination Machine, I would like to see a roller coaster. Quick. Ladies and gentlemen, this souvenir photograph will be available for only $29.95 at the booth by the gate on your way out of the park this afternoon. Great job, Imagination Machine. All right. Now, not only can the Imagination Machine make objects, it can also make stories. Imagination Machine, I would like to see the story of the Three Little Pigs.
Of course, what you just saw was the Imagination Machine being performed in a secular setting, which is why the next story they were about to tell was the Three Little Pigs. But you could obviously use the Imagination Machine to lead into, as I said earlier, the Prodigal Son story that we did in our first webinar, or the body scenery Christmas story that we sent all of you, or another story that you came up with. It might seem a little bit hard when you first look at this, going, well, that seems really complicated, how I could make that happen. But actually, it does rely very heavily on an adult storyteller or narrator who knows their part. But if you have that, the young people themselves can actually be rehearsed into their part very quickly. You just have to show them how to make a machine and show them how to make a couple of objects with their bodies for body scenery. And I've actually put together a presentation with a group of young people in about an hour. So.
Okay. Now, another fun activity, excuse me, for kids and adults is to take the tableau technique from session 1 and use it to tell a biblical story in 3 slides with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you're going to split your crowd up into groups of 5 or 6 and let them come up with a Bible story that they want to tell. Of course, you could also give them a pre-selected story on a strip of paper if you like, and then instruct them as a group to discuss and figure out the most important parts of the story, and then build those 3 scenes one at a time in a way that conveys that part of the story. Then they should rehearse those slides until they can move effortlessly from one slide to the other. When all the groups are done, have them come back together, and the groups can all perform for each other, and they can see if they can guess the story or they may be told the story. Let's watch one in operation. You can have each group announce the title of their story before they present their tableau. But it can also be fun to perform first and let the audience try to guess the story. And that, of course, was the story of David and Goliath. All right, and that's 3-slide tableau.
Our next fun way of presenting a Bible story is called open scenes. Now, an open scene is just a short script where the lines by themselves don't tell you anything about who the characters are, where they are, or even what's happening. And here's an open scene that we've used often, and it you can find any of these. Actually, if you go online and Google open scene, there's a whole bunch of varieties of open scenes, but here's one we've used many times. Okay, and Jocelyn will read the lines with me here.
Okay.
What are you doing here?
I brought this.
Yes, I see.
Good.
Now what?
Maybe it's time to go.
Oh. Okay, as you can see, the lines by themselves don't tell you anything about what the scene is. However, the actors can, by their actions and the way they say the lines, what actors we often call subtext, the meaning behind the line, by changing those, they can use those 7 lines to tell almost any story they want to tell. For example, here's how Jocelyn and I could act out the story of Adam and Eve in the garden using those 7 lines. What are you doing here?
I brought this.
Yeah, I see.
Good.
Now what?
Oh, maybe it's time to go.
Oh! Okay, there you have it, Adam and Eve in 7 lines. Once you've shown a group how these scenes work, you simply hand out the script, then ask them to find a partner, and you give each of the pairs a different Bible story on a slip of paper, a title of a Bible story that they can act out. And you give them these instructions, go off by your partner with your partner, figure out who's going to be actor A, who is going to be actor B, memorize your lines, and then get up and act out the story you've been given just using those 7 lines. Now, we always tell people, remember, you can add action before the lines and after the lines or in between the lines to fill the scene out. You can also really think about what motivates the next line. You don't want them, at all costs, you want to avoid people just reading through the script, one line after another, boom, 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 and the scene lasts about 10 seconds. But take your time, use the lines and your actions to tell the story you've been given. So you send people off, give them 15 minutes and half an hour to create a scene. They come back together and show each other what they've come up with. Here is what a pair might come up with if they were given the title Samson and Delilah. What are you doing here?
I brought this.
Yes, I see.
Good. Maybe it's time to go.
Samson and Delilah with the same 7. Obviously, those are comic renditions of those 7 lines. It is possible to use this script to tell a Bible story that's a serious one. Here is what might happen if a pair got the title Jesus washing the feet of Judas at the Last Supper.
What are you doing here?
I brought this.
Yes, I see.
Good.
Now what?
Maybe it's time to go.
Oh!
Okay. Open scenes, 7 lines to tell any Bible story you want. Once again, we did not send out titles of scenes that you might use or the script, but we showed the script on the screen earlier. You can maybe take a screen grab. We're going to put up on the screen right now a slide showing you possible Bible stories that you could use. And again, hopefully you might be able to take a screen grab or a picture and get some idea of the stories that will work with open scenes. There they are. You can see some are Old Testament, some are New Testament. Most of them are funny, but some are serious, especially toward the end. Okay. Now, that is something we might use as a fun activity. It does depend on having participants who are willing to get up in front and act out things in front of a group. Not everybody is excited about having to do that. So we never force people to do a theater activity that they're not comfortable with. In fact, if we're planning an event or a retreat, we always give people options. Some people who might want to go and do an open scene kind of thing, some who might want to do something that's quieter, more introverted, and even there's always options for people that just want to sit and watch other people. Giving options is always a good idea. Okay. Confession scenes. That was open scenes. This next activity we call confession scenes. And this will work not only as an activity for a group to do, maybe at a youth event. You can actually use this next activity to create scenes to perform in worship. Like I said, we call them confession scenes, and we always like to show one first so people get the idea. Basically, for these scenes, all you really need to know is that the person wearing this leash represents the thoughts of the person holding the leash.
Good morning, God.
Good God morning.
Well, let's see what the mayor has to say today. Not too bad. Brush hair, wash face. Time to start a new day.
Another lousy day at school.
Oh well, at least I got my English paper done. That's something.
You call that thing a paper? I've seen better papers on a roll in an outhouse.
Yeah, I guess I should have spent more time on it.
You always wait to the last minute to do everything.
Oh well, at least I get to see Mark today.
Yeah, you'll be a big hit with those zits all over your face.
Oh, you think he'll notice?
Are you kidding? You look like you had get punctured with a railroad spike.
Oh, I really am breaking out.
And look at that figure of yours. I mean, are those your hips? Or did you stuff your jammies with a whoopee cushion?
I'm so fat.
Yeah, you look great hanging out of your basketball uniform tonight.
Oh, that's right. We have a game tonight. Coach said she might start me this week.
That was before the last game. You played like a moose on rollerblades.
Yeah, I'll probably just sit on the bench again.
As usual.
I've been feeling so run down lately.
Oh, you got that volunteer job at the hospital tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
Why don't you just bag it? You're not doing anybody any good.
Yeah, might as well just stay home.
Who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
You're worthless.
I'm worthless and
Stupid and ugly and clumsy and dumb. You are a walking disaster. Face it.
Life is a mess. Gee, can't believe what a rotten day it's turned out to be already. For the times we let self-pity run our lives,
Lord, forgive us. Okay. Obviously, the idea with these scenes is to try to create a scene that portrays a common little everyday sin from life. And in that scene, one character will always play the person committing the sin, and another actor will play the thoughts of the person committing the sin, and additional actors can play additional roles. In fact, most of the time, you won't just do this with two people. There'll be 3 or 4 people in the scene. If you're working with a group, you show the group how this works, and then you send them off into teams of 3 or 4 or 5. Tell them to discuss quickly an everyday sin that they want to portray. Pick the center, pick the thoughts of the center, pick who the other characters are, then get up on their feet. Don't discuss too long. Get up on your feet and role play it. And the scene only has to go on long enough until the sin is obvious. Encourage the groups, if they can, to find a final sentence to their scene so that everybody knows where the ending of the scene is and know when to freeze. And then they will actually need to write a confession line that they'll say after the scene. Confession line that fits the format. For the times we lie to our parents, Lord, forgive us. Or for the times we lose our temper in traffic, Lord, forgive us. Right? You send groups out, give them 15 minutes, half an hour, come up with a scene, come back together. Everybody performs them for one another. We always encourage people when they're trying to think of the scene, the sin to perform, steer clear of murder, robbery, bank robbery, international terrorism, especially if you're working with young people that like to get dramatic. No, stick to a common everyday sin that might be common to the group. Now, it's a fun activity to do like I said, maybe in a youth group setting, but you can actually use this technique to create scenes for performance in worship. When we perform them in worship, we usually will do 3 or 4 in a row, maybe 5 in a row. And between each of them, we'll sing a brief Kyrie, Lord have mercy, or 2 lines from a common worship song that everybody in the congregation knows. And they'll sing them between each scene, which will give the actors time to move from one scene to the next. We'll also rehearse the scenes to the point where they have some polish. And if you recall, we said earlier, the theater rule of thumb is an hour of rehearsal for every minute of performance. Of course, you don't worry about that rule when you're just doing things in a Christian education setting or on a retreat. But if you're actually going to perform in a worship service, that's kind of a performance level situation. We do encourage people to try to rehearse to the point where they can do things with a certain level of skill or excellence. It's really worthwhile in worship. Okay, we did work with a group at a church during COVID to create some scenes like this, confession scenes. And they actually had to videotape themselves in their own homes using their iPhones and send us the footage. And with a little video magic in that situation, people were able to actually portray their own sin, their own thoughts within the scene. Let's take a look and see what that looked like.
I see you've been shopping. I've got the credit card bill here, and I was really surprised by how much one of these purchases was at this store. It's just way over what I thought.
Oh, you mean that one? Yeah, that's the quilt I bought. Remember the quilt I've been looking for? Yeah. Why does he have to question every purchase I make?
Well, I thought we had talked about a particular price range for that, and this just seems to be way over that. So again, I'm just really surprised by that. It's a lot of money.
Well, I don't remember talking about a price range, and you know I've been looking for a quilt for a long time, and that one, it was for sale. So I do remember talking about a price range, and I said for sale, not on sale.
Well, I guess since it was on sale and you've been searching for just the right one, and you found this one and you're happy with it, I guess even with the price on it, I'll be happy with it too.
Great. I got what I wanted, and he doesn't have a clue.
For the times we lie by twisting the truth, Lord, forgive us.
Guess who I ran into at the store today?
Who'd you see?
Leroy.
Oh, Leroy. How was that? He was probably a hot mess.
It wasn't bad. We talked for a while.
What'd you guys talk about?
He probably needs money again.
He has to come to church with us.
For the times we prejudge others, Lord, forgive us.
You're home from work early.
Yes.
So how was work?
Oh, so.
Looks like you were doing some shopping.
No, these are just some paper for our printer. You said we needed some from work.
They're not going to mind that you took this paper from work?
Well, we got a whole supply today, and this is from our old stock. And you know how it jams our printer. You'll never miss it. Plus, I'm saving them a service call.
Hey, I see you got some pens too. You know, I can never find one of these when I need one. And wait a minute, these
These have your company's name on them.
For the times we steal from work, Lord, forgive us.
So if we were performing those scenes in worship, we might actually end with a general confession for everybody in the congregation after the scenes. But those were just ordinary volunteers from a church who improvised their own scenes there. Obviously, the video you just saw, it did need a little editing magic. It's pretty difficult to perform your own thoughts live in that way. But confession scenes.
Okay. The following activities we're going to talk about are meaningful activities that can help build a group. Because one of the best ways that we can deepen our understanding of one another is by hearing each other's stories. The first activity we call evocative object. We set up a small table with random objects as simple as a coffee mug, a roll of duct tape, a pair of sunglasses, or some keys, etc. And you can get creative too, but we find that often the most random objects inspire the greatest stories. So next, we explain to the group that they're to look at the objects from their seats. And if one of the objects on that table inspires a story in them, to get up, come pick up the object and share a brief 1-minute story about that with the group. It's helpful if you guide them by giving them a theme or maybe from your retreat, or to say something like, anybody who's inspired a story of a happy memory or a holiday memory, or maybe a time when you helped someone, or if you can think of a story this inspires you to a time when you helped someone else, or maybe when a prayer was answered. So you can really match it to any theme or retreat theme that you've got going. We don't force anyone to come up and tell a story, but we have found that after maybe 1 or 2 people get up to share their stories, that all of a sudden people feel empowered and they want to join in as well, because everybody has a story. Again, this is normally something we do spontaneously in retreat or workshop settings. But like the confession scenes, we found a way to work with volunteers from a church and turn it into a performance video where they were inspired by the objects to a Thanksgiving memory that they had.
Well, this silly little chicken, it really makes me think of my silly little chicken at home. His name's Han Crollo, and a couple years ago, he came to us as a little chick from my mom's farm. He was ill, and he needed a lot of extra love and care, and we really weren't sure whether he was going to make it. And as time went by, he healed, but he never fully recouped enough to go back out and live with the rest of the chickens. So my gracious husband allowed him to come and live with us, and he lives alongside the dogs and the rest of the family and looks at us as we're his flock. And I gotta say, I'm just so thankful for this little guy. He brings so much joy to my life, my whole family's life. Birds are hilarious, and this guy's no different.
It's kind of funny how a smell can take you back. I remember growing up that there would be so many times that I would come home after a long day and you'd walk in the door and just get a big whiff of home. It didn't really matter which candle it was. You always knew that it was Mom's, because she has a very particular taste, I guess, when it comes to that stuff. But I'm so grateful for the nostalgia that something as simple as a smell can give to you, and how it can take you back to all of those times in your life and bring back so many emotions with it too.
When I see this perfume bottle, it reminds me of my grandmother. She wore just such a strong perfume, and just being a little girl, she had a plate with all kinds of little bitty perfume bottles that we got to play with, and it's just a sweet memory that I have, and it just reminds me to be thankful for the time I did have, because she lived far away and I didn't get to see her that often, but I'm thankful for the times I had.
You know, growing up in a house with a father that was a general contractor, a tape measure was his best friend in a lot of ways. I learned so many lessons from him in life, and for that I'm thankful. But I remember one time he told me about how he got this free tape measure, and he gave it to one of his young men that he was training, and he did a measurement for a garage door. Well, they ordered the garage door based on those measurements, and well, it was a metric tape measure. So, so many lessons I learned from my father is to be careful how you measure things, and that has just been a benefit to me my whole life. Measure twice and cut once.
Okay, that was evocative objects. The next two activities I'd like to talk about actually work best in a group where you've already developed a level of trust. So these are things you might do at the end of a retreat or the end of a day together when you really built some relationship between members of the group and people might be more willing to be vulnerable. The first we simply call 3-sentence stories. I'll give these instructions to a group. I'll say, I want you to go off by yourself, relax, take a deep breath, say a prayer and ask for the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and then try to think of an event or an incident or a story from your life that you might call a spiritual experience or an experience of God, a time in your life when God was more than just a word to you. And you can interpret that as you want. Some people might go, I was on a family vacation and there was a beautiful sunset, and I pulled the car over to the side of the road and we just sat and looked at the sun go down. And I just felt like there was something bigger than me out there. Other people might have very dramatic stories, stories of healing or of dreams that come true. But it'll be up to each individual to decide what they think is a spiritual experience. And then we ask them to write down the story in 3 and only 3 sentences. I sometimes call this exercise testimony haiku, because haiku is a very short 3-line poem, distillation of a lot into a small space. So write down your story in 3 and only 3 sentences. And the sentences might get quite long, but still keep it to 3. And I always give some examples so people can see the level of vulnerability that we're looking for. Here are stories that were actually written by other people in workshops or in retreats that we led. I was on a plane in bad weather when something went wrong with the guidance system. First sentence. The flight attendants told us to prepare for a crash landing, and we prayed for 15 frightening minutes as the plane descended through clouds to finally touch down safely. We learned later that a small private jet in the area had gone ahead of us to guide us to the runway. 3 sentences. Here is another example. This was actually from our office manager many years ago. Because I am 4'10", weigh 85 pounds, and have several autoimmune diseases, doctors told me I would not get pregnant. When I got pregnant, doctors told me I was too small to carry the child to full term and too weak for a cesarean. I am now the mother of a healthy 4-year-old son. Let's hear one more. My daughter Katie, who lives in Tennessee, has epilepsy, but had been incident-free for a year when I got a call that she'd had another seizure. I found out later she'd been driving in her car alone for an hour, following friends for an outing to a lake. The seizure had come when they had pulled over for gas for 10 minutes, where she was 50 feet from friends in the safety of the parking lot. 3 stories, each only 3 sentences long. You give people these instructions, send them off, give them 15 minutes to half an hour, however long it takes, to write their 3-sentence stories, and then you come back and invite them to read their stories. We never force anybody to read their story, but they can read it if they want to. And we often will set it into a worship format where we'll say, all right, we're going to sing 1 verse of Amazing Grace, and then leave a space, and one at a time, as you feel led, stand up and read your story if you want. We'll let 2 or 3 or 4 stories go by, and then we'll sing another verse of Amazing Grace. And leave a space and have 3 or 4 more stories read aloud. And just continue that way until everybody in the group has had a chance to read their 3-sentence stories. And often the cumulative effect of just hearing one story after another in such a tight, concise form, it can be very powerful and very moving. The only time I've seen the exercise not really work is when somebody just feels like, my story's too big for 3 sentences. And then you see them put their paper down and stand up and go, let me just tell you the whole thing. And they go on for 5 or 10 minutes. It really kind of ruins the moment. So we always really try to emphasize as much as possible. Please try to stick to 3 and only 3 sentences. Testimony haiku or 3-sentence stories. The next activity is actually kind of appropriate for Christmas or Advent. Again, an activity best used with a group that already has built a level of trust. And I'll set down a block, an object in the room with a chair, and I'll say, all right, I want you to imagine this is the nativity scene right here. Here's the manger in front of me. Mary is sitting here. Joseph is standing right there. I want you to come up one at a time as you feel led. Stand right where I'm standing here, facing toward the audience, and then pretend to give a gift to one of these 3 people. And when you give it, I want you to just say a sentence or 2 or 3 about what it is that you're giving and why you're giving it. Now, you don't actually want to give a physical object. Instead, you just mime the object when you give it, and try to avoid one of 2 things. Sometimes I see people come up and they, for some reason, feel the need to turn this into a religious event and preach a little sermon. Jesus, I give you this ring. As a symbol of my love, it is my wedding ring. And as we know, you are the groom of the church and we are your bride. And the level of love that a man feels for his wife is the depth of love that you gave to us as you sacrificed your life for us and died for our sins. Blah, 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 blah. Right? A sermon, but not really from the heart. The other mistake I sometimes see people make is it turns it into like a Christmas pageant where they just come up and go, I give you this ring as a symbol of my love. Next. All right. Instead, you try to say something from the heart in 2 or 3 sentences. I saw a man come up once, for example, and he said words like this. Joseph, you're a new father, and I know what that feels like because I'm a father and have children as well. And you have no idea what's in store for you or what lies ahead. It can be a wild ride. So I feel for you. But I wanted to give you something. It's a little old school, but I always carry a photograph of my children in my wallet. And this is a picture of my son. I want you to have it. Because someday, I hope, your boy and my boy could be friends. Okay, just that much. From the heart, it's vulnerable, and set the tone for other people who are coming up to give gifts. It's interesting, again, this is, as I said, it's an exercise that works best if people already have a level of comfort with each other and are willing to get vulnerable. I did see this once in a workshop where there was actually a mixed age audience, and a young boy who was about 10 or 11, maybe 11 or 12. When I gave the instructions, he was like one of the first to go. And again, he thought this had to be something religious. So he ran off and he grabbed a cross. We were in the church basement. There was a little altar off to the side for Sunday school or something. On it was a big gold cross. And he grabs this cross and he runs over and Jesus, why don't you have this cross? Which, when you think about it, is probably pretty poor taste to give Jesus a crucifix as a present. But he thought he had to be religious. Then he watched several other people go. And as it went along, people gave things more and more from the heart. And a light bulb went on. And he decided he needed to go again. And he went and he got his skateboard. He came up and he said, Jesus, I want you to have my skateboard because I know I'm spending way too much time on it and neglecting other things I'm supposed to be doing, like my schoolwork and my family. And you could just see, again, that was real. That was something that meant something to him. So the light bulb can come on. I usually ask people, a lot of people want to give things that are not objects. They want to give their time or their hearts or their children, something that's not an object. But I kind of encourage them, if you can, connect that thing that's not an object with an object. Like if you want to give your time, pretend to give a watch. Or if you want to give your children's lives, a photograph of your children. If you can tie it to a physical object, sometimes that really helps this exercise. But again, don't leave a real object, minor. Okay, and that is an exercise we call the Magi exercise. Okay, I think at this point, we want to open it up in case there are any questions or thoughts or anyone questions of us as a group or of anything we've done in the webinars.
So one of our participants would like to know if the stand-up, sit-down questions were in the emailed packet. She says she would love to recreate this for her church, maybe for an evening of fellowship.
Yes, they were not. We can, I don't know if it's possible to send them out later. They were not in the handouts that we have already gathered. But I was hoping that by putting them up on the screen the way we did, that person could rewind to that spot when the recording is out on your website and get a screen grab of them. Is that possible?
I think so.
Yeah. But like I said, we're more than willing to give them to you if you want for you to send out to participants.
We'll check with Mary and see if she would like to send out another packet.
Okay. Any other questions?
That's the only one I see at the moment.
Okay. In that case, I did want to end with something resourced. In the 3 webinars, we often showed videos of young people playing theater games. And like today, in today's webinar, the machine and the Amazing Imagination Machine, those were videos that we created with young people. And they all exist on a special area of our website called Curtains Up, which is really a curriculum, a creative dramatics curriculum for young people that's available for free. And it has, supporting it, over 50 videos of how to play theater games with kids. Now, it's not specifically written for a church audience. It's written for a secular audience. But here's how you get to it. You go to your web browser and you type in friendsofthegroom.org. That takes you to our website. If you look, oops. Let's roll that back.
Yeah, let's roll that back.
Roll that back.
Okay.
How to get to the area.
Oops.
Okay.
We're going to start this. There we go.
So type in friendsofthegroom.org in your web browser, which will take you to our website, which looks like this. If you look on the right-hand side of our website and scroll down, you'll see that purple and yellow faces there. It's a Curtains Up. Click on it. It takes you to the Curtains Up page where you'll see you can access a detailed curriculum, a simplified curriculum, and an encyclopedia of theater games. If you click on that, it will take you to our Theater Games Encyclopedia. And there'll be over 50 games organized alphabetically down the page. As you scroll down, you can see there are lots of different theater games to play with kids. If you go to the top there and you want to pick one, say the one up right, the first one, body scenery. If you click on that picture, it takes you to a separate page. Each of those games has its own page where you can find all the instructions. And you can also click on a video there at the top, which takes you to a YouTube site where you'll see a video of how the game is played. So you'll have written instructions, but also video instructions. All right. So we wanted to point that out to people because it is free, it's available, and we really want people to use it. So you can just go to our website and access Curtains Up if you're looking for games for kids. All right. That's what we have for you today. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, we want to thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of sharing both our love for Jesus and our love for theater with you. I know that for me personally, I've been with the group for 34, 35 years. And what's really kept me here is I felt like as we've just used these very techniques in the games and the shows that we perform, it's just added a dimension to my life, where just a deeper dimension of the love of God and understanding Him, and really kind of pulling through scripture and just really meditating on it and trying to stage it. And I've really grown in my faith. And then I feel like it's a gift to be able to use my love for theater and just seeing what creatively can be done, with for all of us that grew up in the church where liturgy has become almost rote sometimes. And just to see that there were new ways to bring the Bible, scripture alive in ways that really touches the heart. So yeah, thanks for letting us share that with you. And again, we say, if you have any questions, feel free to email us or call us at any time. And we're more than happy to add input or help you brainstorm if you've got events coming up that you're trying to really, create, or any of the techniques that we've shown you.
Okay.
Many
with that,
thanks to both of you. And
So
I just heard from Mary that she would like a copy of those that she can send out. So if we can get that to her.
Okay, sure can.
In that case, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.